Whenever you think to go there, it's fine. I texted there. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll have to look. Oh, good. Well, and then I was thinking that too. I was like, so, yeah.
They were going to use this as the presenters.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah.
What do I do?
Oh, never.
He had me to set up this computer for Zoom. Okay. And then we were going to be sharing documents and all that.
Who's
Nate helped me with this yesterday.
we want to let Michelle in, or are we waiting? So I'm gonna minimize this because this is also going to be our projection, right? This is how we're going to show our screens. So let's go here.
So maybe.
Smaller. Who's this? Is it you?
Yeah.
Do you have the presentation?
Yes, it's in Word docs.
The slideshow?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get into Word docs, to be honest with you. I just follow your link from 100 years ago.
Oh, so it should be in there then, right? I mean, I'm logged in here. It should be, if I get into my email, I should be able to get it, correct?
Yeah, or Drive. If it was sure, if you put it on Board Docs, probably on Drive too.
That's how I was emailed to me. Joe emailed me.
Or Drive, but if you didn't go to the email first, because if you go to your person, add it to your Drive, then it won't be there.
Okay, so what are we doing? Going to the Drive? We're going
Well, you said Joe?
to, yeah, Joe emailed me.
So let's search Joe. I know. I don't see it. So then let's go to your Drive. See if you shared it.
You know who's going first? Academics?
I am.
Mhm. Oh, baby.
Confidential. Sticking out there.
Yeah.
Right. I do.
Hello. Hi. Tell me about it.
Okay. I will share it with you. You're the ladybug?
More like a fire breathing dragon.
So now I want to come back to this screen. Slow.
I just said the capital G got me.
If the camera is over there, so they have to stand and speak when they're presenting. If they stand in front of that.
Set it up so that they'll get behind the podium or behind the
Okay.
thing, speak into the computer, speak out through.
Okay. And is the
What?
camera pointing at the computer?
Should be, yeah. But it's not hooked up to anything just yet.
Got it.
Have to call 7703.
Can you see this chat from there? From where you are?
No, because I'm not into anything. This is going to be my board docs.
Are you going to do anything before we share? Because like this is shared screen, so the audience can see it right now. But I'm not sure. Where is the link for that?
When I first looked at it,
Like, how do these guys do?
they were gonna.
They must have
Is it
got
on the
it
website?
on the website under the calendar.
So we got something to the school saying they were doing that personality, so. I got like a couple.
Fred, that that presentation is under board docs, and then what you're sharing right now is working good.
No, you just call them out on Facebook. That's the part. Call them out on Facebook. All of a sudden, they had enough appointments for the entire firehouse. First responders, they should. First responders, yeah. I didn't go, because I won't have any kind of shot that I don't have to get. I see a needle and
My wife would be very upset if I did.
but you're a risk factor.
Yeah.
The second one. I don't want to hear that.
No, to the blue admit.
Thank you for second shot. I'm not getting started.
I know, I pushed on it and I had.
Screen the other day, and I'm even trying. I'll do that.
Here it says
For a
you're,
presentation guest.
says you're there. So I can hide this.
Nate or Justin, could you give us a chat that you can hear this if you can?
All right, now, how do I get rid of this? So it doesn't project on the screen.
Minimize that. And then move it out of the way. This is going to advance this, or the smartphone can tap. You got to speak into this one when we're presenting. As far as the board goes,
The board members need to mute their microphones and turn your volume all the way down.
Do we need
Yes, you're gonna need to get on the Zoom. I'm sorry. That's what we figured out. My technology people have been guiding me all week. And they tell me, everybody,
are you in the Zoom?
okay, well, hopefully. you can
No,
hear me.
I was.
So if you go to the website on the calendar, click the Zoom, you have to cut and paste the Zoom link that's on that calendar into your web browser. That'll get you into the meeting.
Who's the host?
The host is going to be Mary from this computer over here.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you there, Frank? Are you? Oh, okay. I got you. All right. So you're going to mute Frank when you get in. Mute that, and then you also have to turn the volume all the way down. Yeah, because what happens is it echoes across the screen.
And the people at home can't hear. When you guys are talking, but not talking into your computer, the people at home can't hear you. So let me see if I can.
It's, yeah, you don't have to cut and paste if you go into your calendar.
Our presenters are going to come up to the computer up here. You should be able to speak into that just like you're doing Zoom. Everyone in here should hear you, and the people at home should hear you. So my people know.
Yeah, questions. If board members have questions or anybody out here has any of them,
If you go on to,
I didn't make sure people at home can hear.
Ready? Do we have any, oh, Rachel's on Zoom?
Yeah. Did you?
All right.
So I can't tell if I know I've got Rachel up there and I can't tell if he's got it. No,
Just Rachel. So
Kelly was joining.
okay, Rachel.
And Joe, I don't see you on there.
Oh. How about this?
Maybe as a co-host, you don't have to be let in? Or
are you gonna have me on there?
what to do, Derek? Okay. And your microphones are muted, and your volume is way down.
Wait, at the end of the pandemic, we'll get it down.
Yeah.
Ready?
Mine's still saying nothing.
doesn't go well. We've been having a little connectivity issues with Zoom.
I wonder if that is it because
What? We don't want you to connect to the audio. You're gonna be here and project your voice, I guess. Is that how we're doing this?
The only thing is, if you have something to say or whatever, you'll have to come up here and say it, okay?
Is it coming up?
Like, we have a lot of windows open.
yeah, probably that. But,
Here, test computer audio.
Huh. Yep, I don't see you either, Sherry. Interesting. On it twice.
It's not showing you over here.
It's not showing Derek or Sherry either.
Try to go in through the calendar. Maybe
I did.
maybe the links are wrong.
I did do it through.
Your calendar though. What about the physical calendar?
No, it's not showing.
Mine just says asking.
Looks like you, Derek.
Well, at least you got on. I can't even get in. Hold on.
No, I don't do that. Can you do later? Yeah, pick a time first. and do it.
Mine's telling me I need to upgrade my browser.
Yeah, just schedule that. Oop, that's when you hit the mute button.
Yeah, so Derek and I are in on our own meetings. So it's just Derek and I in this meeting. And it's.
Because when the elementary kids here, you show us how to do this. No, it's fine.
Yep.
Mine's trying to upgrade the browser. So when it stops,
So this is what it keeps coming me. So you can post to like through any screen. I don't know why it's not like. That's the right one, but it's not like.
Okay, so what do we want to do?
When you're looking at the calendar, there's a calendar on the side that's all text.
Yep.
Go to the district, use the drop down for the calendar part, so that you actually see like a map calendar. And then you'll see that there's a link on that. That has a join Zoom meeting URL. Cut and paste that into your browser. I don't know why that's set up like that, but that's how I think, that's how Katie got in, that's how I got in, and I think that that's how we have to do it.
You were in, Sherry.
Oh, I wasn't?
Yeah, we saw you on there. The invite.
Yeah, so do you use the map calendar, Karen?
No, Derek.
Use the map calendar?
No, I want it is.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that one?
For some reason. Yeah, yeah, so we're gonna try to,
How about now, man?
yeah, but we probably use the text on the side. So-
Okay, here comes Derek.
Oh, no, that's because it's coming, so.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Derek is in.
How is he aware of that? Because I can't, she just.
No, Sherry.
Oh, you're in. Okay.
I'm there?
Did we press on?
No, not you, Sherry.
Yeah, the map calendar.
And look,
There, you're there.
This presentation, this one is picking up the voices, so we may not need
Yeah.
to,
You should be there now.
But it says there's one person on this thing. That's.
You have Sherry, Mary?
no.
Okay.
Now you get a true feeling of how the kids and the teachers feel on a daily basis. Right now.
The first part now, the first it was like this. Now
Mine was the update.
My computer started to update.
don't update anything. Not now.
Okay, here's Sherry.
Now you're in.
Woohoo!
I didn't even know.
That's Katie.
Yep.
Really need to win, Katie.
All right.
I
Come
call
on,
the
man.
meeting to order. We have 5 board members present. We have 1 via Zoom. If we could stand to salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start with the 2022-21-22 budget development, academic and sports.
So we're going to have Tracy, Sam, and Chuck presenting on this part of the budget. And if you'd like to come up here, the computer will catch your voices. And Fred is also in.
Yeah, Fred's slides in the first couple of slides,
Okay.
so we all both on the time, I guess.
You guys are just.
You should be fine. Yeah. Okay. All right, so today we're going to start with academics, then we'll go through each individual building and program from there. So from an overview of academics at the district level, we're going to focus on reading, math, and writing. So as many of you know, last year we did a lot of work into pursuing into reading, or a new reading program. We elected to go with into reading, which is from Houghton Mifflin. There is a link on here which you can explore at your leisure. The last program was in place for 7 years, right, Tracy?
Longer than there, longer than I've been in principal.
Yeah, so a really long time. And also had become, it ran out of publication. We made it work through the pandemic year with Tracy purchasing surplus from the warehouse so that we could just get by. Ideally, we would have rolled out into reading this year. However, with the pandemic, it seemed like a lot to try and tackle with a remote and hybrid learning model. So next year in September, and actually there's already been some professional development provided to teachers about into reading, but next year we'll be launching into reading, which will be our new reading program for K through 5. The process, the literacy leadership team with a committee of teachers and administration worked for a few months to select a good program that we think will work for us. And at the middle school, high school, details related to the selection process for texts or instructional models. We focused on high interest reading, grade level appropriate texts. There's a secondary focus on text that promotes college and career readiness, and some recent discussions that have started to address equity, rigor, and relevance. For writing at the elementary school, a couple of years ago, we did a lot of work putting together a Calkins unit of study. So Lucy Calkins is a well-known writing researcher. And we developed this out beyond even what Calkins had into a 612 model. It was the year that we were identified. So the state required that we choose one research-based intervention. Dr. Lane and her committee chose the SRSD. Unfortunately, that is also a writing program, which disjointed the effort of the previous committee, putting us with Lucy Calkins' unit of study at the elementary school and SRSD, self-regulated strategy development, at the middle school, high school. Over the next 12 to 18 months, we will work to bring alignment back to that program, probably focusing on SRSD rather than on Lucy Calkins. that's an announcement to the elementary school teachers. I don't want them to be overwhelmed. We have one here in the audience. It won't be a fast rollout. We'll make sure everybody's real comfortable and real competent with that before we go. So the early training targeted ELA, we have also taken this program and built it out to support math, social studies, and science. And yeah, and that expansion into social studies and science is really new this year. For math studies, unfortunately, because 2020 seemed to be the year for all things to rise and converge, while we knew that we were hanging on to a reading program, we learned that the math program we were using, Envisions 2015, is no longer in publication. So in August, we found that out and began to research what math program we will be purchasing for next year, 21-22, that we will have for the next 5 or 6 or 7 years, depending on its validity. In that, we set aside a cost estimate of about $50,000. That is a ballpark number. Hopefully, we'll bring it in a little bit cheaper than that. And through this very similar process, we have a committee of 13, including myself and Ms. Kent, and several BES teachers and the RTI coordinator, and as well as the department chair for Math 612. We're really stressing that alignment. We're trying to stretch our system. We were a system of schools. We're working diligently towards becoming a school system. There's a little bit more alignment and unity in our practices. Currently, we're reviewing 3 programs, which are Envisions into Math, which is an alignment to into reading, and a third one that we're working with the teachers to identify. Envisions 2020, which is Envisions 2021 2.0, may be the easiest move because teachers are familiar with it. They have looked at the materials for that already. We're getting some good feedback on that, but we're not comfortable just choosing what we always did. We want to make sure that we're choosing the best program. And at the math, it's very similar. It's a standards-based curriculum. With SRSD, which targets the word problems. Word problems are currently one of the more challenging aspects of secondary level math. And through using literacy as a driver, I think we're going to see some growth with mathematics at the secondary level as well. I'll pass off to Ms. Kent.
Okay, just highlighting some of the things that have been happening in this current school year. So, of course, there was a lot of work on the part of many people throughout the summer for us to successfully reopen this fall, making sure that we were following all of the new COVID protocols and guidelines to ensure that we could bring students and staff back safely. Our teachers have really gone above and beyond, learning how to very quickly adapt and adjust their teaching models to be able to provide hybrid instruction in many of our classrooms. The technology alone is a challenge, and just trying to figure out how to best meet the needs of our students in that new sort of dynamic for instruction. Something that we had planned before the pandemic even came into play, which was good timing, was the implementation of a new curriculum for social emotional learning at the elementary school, and that program is called Second Step. So our school counselor, Ryan Steller, pushes into classrooms to deliver that instruction. She visits each classroom. At this point, it's once a month. We hope to be able to expand this program a bit more as we move forward, but it is our first year. I spoke a little bit at the last board meeting about how we've been able to continue with our monthly assemblies to continue to build that school community, despite having some students at home and some in person. That's something that I'm proud of, that the teachers have been able to continue to move forward with. Mr. Hutchinson spoke to our curriculum work in terms of selecting a new math program moving forward. And then teachers are starting the work of piloting and becoming familiar with the new program into reading, which will be implemented this fall. And then another endeavor that Samantha Brewer is heading up for the district is the implementation of restorative practices. We've been devoting our monthly faculty meetings to this topic as we roll that out to staff. So a couple of the highlights from this year. Just got to do it on the board. Okay. In terms of looking to the next school year and changes at the elementary school, we are looking at bringing the pre-kindergarten program in-house to Berlin. Currently, the way the program works is it's a three-way collaboration between Berlin, Questar, and Capital District Beginnings. So you have three different entities trying to work together to provide this program. So some of the rationale for wanting to bring the program back into district is the oversight of curriculum and instruction. So currently the teachers in that program are employed by Questar. So the curriculum choices are made by Questar. So we're looking to have more control over that curriculum piece so that we can ensure that there is alignment for students curriculum-wise between pre-K and kindergarten. It becomes challenging when you're dealing with so many different entities to all be on the same page. We have different calendars that we follow. Communication is challenging. We make it work, but again, having it in-house would just alleviate some of those problems that we have. Currently, as I said, these are Questar teachers, so they're getting their professional development from Questar. If we were to bring the program in-house, those teachers would be getting the same professional development that the rest of the Berlin staff is receiving. So we're all working on restorative practices. They haven't had that training. So just looking again for that continuity and consistency pre-K through 12. We don't evaluate those teachers. We don't supervise those teachers. So if they were in-house, it would just give us the opportunity to spend more time in their classrooms observing instruction and providing feedback to both the teachers and the teaching assistants. And then the other big piece of this is the special education portion of the program that's provided. So Sam is going to speak briefly about that collaboration.
Yeah, just, like Tracy said, there's a special education piece of this because we, part of our UPK program is that we are also able to run an integrated pre-K in one of those classes. So we are able to support, students with disabilities in one of those classes. So, I've been greatly involved in these conversations too. We looked into whether it, made sense to bring the special education piece back in-house. Pre-K is even more complicated than I think I even realized for pre-K special education. So we are going to continue to partner with Capital District Beginnings. At least that's our intention at this point for that integrated preschool piece. However, for all of those reasons Tracy mentioned in terms of bringing that general education piece back in-house, all of that is just going to support us with that transition of our special education students, the alignment of the curriculum, the oversight of the staff, and really just allow us to have a lot more knowledge of our CPSC students while they're in preschool as they transition to kindergarten.
Okay, I don't want to be too redundant about the highlights. I think we're all very proud of the work that everyone has done with hybrid learning, which is a bit more of a highlight at the middle high school level because we do have more often that synchronous and asynchronous learning going on within each classroom as well as our cohort students, and we've had to
really make some adjustments, and teachers have had quite a bit of flexibility in terms of being effective educators in that model. We're excited about how the capital project has been going. We're excited to go into the next phase of that. We have been making progress toward almost all of our ESSEP goals. Some of them we have still to measure, but as we have been following our ESSEP goals under our identification, we've been making progress toward those. The restorative practices, particularly the focus on climate and culture, as Sam has been heading that professional development for the building here, we found to be tremendously helpful. What's really nice about this highlight is that it really is the fundamental philosophy of both Chuck and I when it comes to dealing with student behaviors and dealing with students who are in crisis or who need some education or support in their decision making. Community events, we've been excited to be able to host a number of those. I saw Rachel's coming up after us, and she'll talk much more about the PR and the communication that's gone along with those community events. Our virtual clubs and activities have continued to thrive, really. The Clue performance will be on Friday and Saturday night. You can get your tickets online. We've also been able to run some athletics. The intramural program has started. We're going to be doing some competitions coming up soon. And really with Nate and Ariel and Justin Koval too as sort of an unofficial advisor, we have been working to revamp our student government. So those are some highlights that we've been proud of here. We're also proud of end of year events that we're able to plan. More to come there, so stay tuned for that. Some of the budgetary considerations. So this is a big building with some serious needs in terms of the budget. A number of the items here are not changes as far as new asks, but I wanted to point them out because at some point we do hope to meet our goals with the ESSEP and to no longer be identified as a school in need. And these are the things that we've decided have been working really well, or things that are currently planned to be grant funded that we would really want to discuss keeping if the grant money that goes along with the ESSEP goes away. So right now, the SIG grant is intended to fund a summer learning academy. Our intention would be to prioritize middle level ELA and math. Those are the two areas that we're identified for in the ESSEP plan. Our objective would be to help make up for some of the regression that has happened between last March and particularly September 1st with our students progressing in literacy and math, mostly due to that fully remote because of the pandemic. We also want to have students be able to recover credits so that they're not retaking entire years and getting behind. That early intervention, there's a lot of good research that proves that aligns really well with reducing dropout rates. So targeting that middle level is something that we are really interested in doing. I am proposing a longer term research and proposal for the 22-23 school year of a middle school CTE or some form of technology teacher combined with a work-based learning program. In my time here so far, I've learned that Berlin students really become engaged when they find relevance in the work that they're doing, and to partner with some businesses to find out how we can get our students some perspective through work-based learning and also get them some credit. These two could really go hand in hand to help meet that goal. Next year, we want to do some research with guidance counselors, with Fred's Helping Curriculum and with Questar to see what that would look like for us. As far as behavioral supports, the restorative practices, professional development is something we definitely want to keep. Right now, there's $15,000 being funded through grant money to give that professional development to our teachers and to really incorporate some training and to keep following up with that training. Again, we are hoping to review and update our code of conduct, but right now that money is being funded through a grant. In the best case scenario, you need the most money for the most training when you first start something. So that would be a year like this year, and that's approximately the amount that's being given towards restorative practices training. As years go on, that amount should decrease, as we should hopefully be able to either turnkey within our staff or become more at a mastery level and not need quite as much training. Surveillance cameras are a priority. I know that they're part of the capital project, but I also know that anything could happen with budgetary capital planning. And so we have certainly a need for surveillance cameras for general safety of people and property. And as far as facilities go, I just wanted to point out that we definitely have some new construction spaces that will need to be furnished with to make it the best possible learning environment for students. Particularly, I'm thinking about the science classrooms that are planned over the summer. We had a representative in today for about an hour with our science teachers to discuss different furniture options and how to make that a really hands-on, engaging learning environment. But the furniture for especially science classrooms can be expensive. And finally, office support. We're finding that we could use an extra half an hour for necessary work and athletics for the main office. We just have some bus communication that's been happening past a certain time, and that we want to make sure that we're safely buzzing people into the building and that we're being responsible about answering people's questions and answering phones in a timely manner. Chuck.
Good evening. Given our rather disjointed year with athletics, due to obviously COVID and some other successes with our merger with New Lebanon, we are pretty proud of some of the highlights we have going on right now with the sports program. Obviously, sports returning is a pretty big deal. With COVID precautions in place, we've proceeded slowly and cautiously and safely, I believe, doing weekly testing for our high-risk sports. That's with the support of our board and our community. We have competitive games beginning soon. That's just probably 2 or 3 weeks away until we have actual competition and games going on in the community again. That's great news. We have new uniforms to reflect the merger between Berlin and New Lebanon. Those are just about all in. We have a new track and soccer field put in. We have the feedback from students, feedback from families, parents has been extremely positive. You can feel the energy in the hallways. You can feel it after school. It feels like a school again to have that kind of energy going on right now. And we've had I think we have some improved collaboration with Rachel in communications. We have some plans going forward to really get the word out. So what's happening in our games and sports on a regular basis. Kind of some highlights on a regular basis for her to put forth. We're also looking into live streaming of our events coming up for the families that can't be at the games. We have spectator limitations, which we expect. We want to be able to live stream those events, and I've been working with Rachel and Brian on that. So that should be going forward. Okay. All right. Given that, there are of course some items to monitor going forward. I don't have a lot of big asks here, so I want to make sure what we have in place is a solid foundation. Number one, we have a cross-country trail. I'm in discussions with Cyril regarding repair of that trail. We'll see what that's going to involve. Also discussion regarding the upkeep of newer fields. We want to make sure what we have is in place as a solid foundation, as I said, before we start looking for bigger things. We're going to review some interest in a possible long-term plan for softball, including a possible first base side fencing and a clay infield. Again, we'll look into that. We'll monitor that situation as far as the cost and as far as what we can do on our own here, as well as reviewing areas to improve the merger success with New Lebanon. It's a relatively new merger. We want to see what's being successful, where the gaps are, and address those going forward as well. I'd also like to take a look at the possibility of adding unified sports. Okay, that's where students with developmental disabilities play sports alongside their more typically developing peers. So I want to see if that's a possibility to pursue for our district. A few other districts in the area are doing that. I think that would be a nice thing to be involved in. So I want to pursue that possibility as well. Thank you.
All right, and just some quick highlights in terms of exceptional education. You know, we had some guidance from New York State about the provision of special education services during COVID, and then the school year started, and then, you know, New York State decided to change those recommendations. So like everybody said, a lot of, you know, adapting this year, but I have to say, you know, I actually just did a webinar today. It was a law webinar from the Council of Special Education Administrators, and they did a poll at the beginning of it. And the question was, do you feel like your district has been able to provide special education services during, you know, this COVID pandemic? And honestly, I was able to answer, you know, yes to that. I feel like our staff has been just amazing in their ability to adapt and be flexible and to provide services during this time to our students. This year, we moved the supervision of 504 accommodation plans back to my office. I feel like that has been a really nice move. It provides a lot more consistency in terms of the accommodations and modifications that are provided to students who do have 504 accommodation plans. Last year, we were approved for an ESY program for the first time. We did apply for that and we were approved for it. We did run it, we just ran it remotely. So I am very much looking forward to running an extended school year program this summer in person. With COVID, we will have, you know, just more students qualifying for ESY, extended school year services. But again, with that actual class being able to run this summer, we will be able to provide the students who qualify for ESI services, those services. And, you know, we're continuing to work through our improvement plan, focusing on graduation rate, course pass failure rate for students with disabilities, Regents pass fail rate, transition in the IEP, and at the K2 level, we're looking at Ames-led progress and with a focus on phonics instruction. So I'm pretty short in terms of budget. Our, you know, well-known physical therapist has officially retired. I did receive her letter. So we are going to be putting out an RFP for contract services for a new physical therapist. Other than that, I've made some just very minor changes to what our middle school services look like. But at this time, I do not have any anticipated changes to program services and staffing. You know, you'll notice I did throw anticipated in there because, you know, in special education, I could say one thing to you tonight and tomorrow could be a totally different story. So, but as of right now, not anticipating major changes in exceptional education. Nope.
Good evening, board. Just want to highlight a couple of things. First of all, thank you to Mr. Hutchinson, Ms. Kent, Ms. Brewer, Ms. Sullivan, Mr. Paravella for coming up and presenting in terms of what the budget would look like when it concerns academics and sports. Ms. Capozzi and myself have been going around meeting with each of the administrators individually, and our focus starts with what do our students need next year in order for us to go to the next level? What would you need as an administrator in order to take our students to the next level and support our staff in going to the next level? And keeping in mind the pandemic and the economy, we've been very conservative in terms of our approach. So that's why through this presentation, you've seen we have accomplished a lot. We do have goals for next year in terms of how we're going to grow as a district. We're focusing a lot on alignment of the curriculum. We're focusing a lot on integration of our services, And we're also focusing a lot on how to get to the next level so it makes sense for us in terms of academics and athletics. And we've done it with a conservative approach in terms of finances. So that's why a lot of our programs, when we're looking at it, we are maintaining those programs and growing those programs without significantly affecting the budget in terms of an increase. So we have been careful in our planning, but at the same time, we're confident that we will be able to keep making progress next year as we progress. So this is something I did want to mention to the board. We're being very careful. We do realize that expenses can happen which you cannot anticipate. And so that is going to be part of our budgetary planning as well. Our goal during this presentation was to bring to the board all that we have accomplished, but we're not done. So what are we going to do next as we move forward? And that is important for us to keep in mind. Regarding the pre-K program, we are still finalizing the final numbers. That's why a number wasn't presented for that. We have done research into what it takes for us to bring the program back to us. What are the benefits? How do we go ahead step by step, methodically, making sure that our students can come to us and benefit from aligning our pre-K with our kindergarten program. What we have realized through looking at data is that real early on, when students are lagging behind in reading and mathematical numeracy, that gap tends to grow as the students go through the school years. So we want to address it sooner rather than later. And for us, bringing the pre-K program back into our building would enable Ms. Kent, Ms. Brewer, and other administrators, Mr. Hutchinson, from an academic perspective. It'll help us to align the curriculum and support our students at a very young age so that when they're coming to kindergarten, we can work towards either narrowing or eliminating any gap that may be there, and then working from there. The data so far in terms of finances is telling us we have one segment left, and that is regarding what would it be in terms of salaries for the 2 teachers and the 2 TAs who will be staffing those rooms. And depending on how the numbers play out in terms of who actually comes, there is an Education Law 3014 that we have to keep in mind as we go forward with bringing the program back. And so keeping that law in mind and looking at the staffing, we may either break even, we may actually come in lower than what we are right now, or a little bit higher than what we are right now. But it won't be a significant difference. But the benefits will be significant for our students. These are our students. They're coming to our buildings. We want them to be a part of our programs, and it'll be very much beneficial for us. So as we get more final numbers regarding the pre-K program, I will make sure to let the board know about it so that we have a good idea. The final piece should get in place pretty soon, within a few days, and I'll let the board know about it. At this time, I want to open up to questions that the board may have regarding our presentation, so we can address any questions that you may have.
If you bring the pre-K back in, is there a class limit size such as you have with Westar right now?
Yes, 18 students to a classroom, 1 teacher, 1 teaching assistant.
And that's the pre-K ratio across the board. That's not a Westar thing, that is the pre-K ratio number.
You can have additional students above that 18, but you would then need another teaching assistant.
What is the max?
Currently 18.
No, I mean, yeah, another teaching assistant if you go more, but how many more?
Well, you want to be careful with that.
Yeah,
You have
I mean,
3-year-olds.
No, I'm not saying I think it's a good idea, I just want to know what the limits are.
It's very little, so it's in the low 20s. I can get the exact number for you, Jeff,
No, that's
but
enough. Just look.
yeah, it's in the very low 20s.
Ideally, I would
Ideally.
want to even go above the 18.
Yeah.
Which brings up a question along the same lines. Can we limit that to 2 classrooms and make a later?
We currently have to do that, Katie. If I have more than 36 people that want to register their students, they are waitlisted for that reason.
Yeah, I understand that, but could we do that if we brought it in-house?
changing?
Yeah. Do the rules change?
No, because it has to do with how you write the UPK grant. And the grant is written to support 2 classrooms. So we would continue to write the grant to support 2 classrooms. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was some change if we brought it in this house, and there would be, being that Berlin is hosting the program, control the program, if we have 40 kids that apply, can we legally limit that to the what is it, 36 kids?
And I believe, and I can do a little bit more research, that it's based on how you write that UPK grant.
What's the average? Normally over 36?
In my experience, the program is full each year. This year it's not full, and that's because many parents chose not to send their children to pre-K. And also the class size had to be limited because of social distancing. If someone is on the waiting list and a spot opens up for whatever reason, we quickly move them in. I would say on average, you would have maybe 1 to 3 families on the waiting list. And it does vary year by year depending on movement in and out of the district.
I have a lot of questions on pre-K. Sure. You know, I have a very strong experience.
Yeah.
I just wonder, what kind of changes do you anticipate making?
It's not so much about changes, Katie, and it's in no way meant to be disrespectful to the staff who does a tremendous job in those classrooms. It's more about, I don't choose, Mr. Hutchin doesn't play a role in the curriculum. We don't observe those teachers.
Stronger integration.
Yeah, so just looking for more.
So what my experience was, and it may have just been my own personal, they really integrated family. And, you know, the field trips, the classroom activities. It just seemed like there was a lot of push for family involvement. Not just mom and dad, but grandparents.
If you looked, and not just with pre-K, but with pre-K as well, all the way through Jody's presentation, we've all kind of taken this, COVID has really centered us around how to integrate community and family all the way through the system.
Right.
I think it's our biggest strength is the community that we're in. If you want to talk about our strength, we've made it this far. I think we're the last school standing in the Questar 3 region that hasn't had to close a building. It's more than a good time. I said it over the last 2 months. So I feel relatively safe.
Yeah, I mean,
but that integration would be there, not only with curriculum, not only with instruction, not only with professional development, but it would provide an opportunity for integration of families.
It's just one of those things that I did notice a big difference between pre-K and kindergarten. It was just something I noticed.
And it's something I don't want to speak for Tracy, but I'm sure that with her focus on family.
Which brought up my next question about the integrated classroom. And I know that there was mentioned one teacher, one student. If a student needs a one-on-one or additional support, does the district have to pay for that now, or is it through the another early intervention?
It's all that is still paid for by the county. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why, again, we briefly considered, could we, what would it look like if we brought that special education piece back? And like I said, that's where it got very deep. District would essentially have to become a county provider and this, yeah. So, yeah.
Even for like special services.
Yes, correct, all of that, yes, yep, all still paid for by the county.
And then it's still paid through
Capital district, I mean, that's our plan, right? So right now, again, because it is not within our, it's a partnership. So right now, Capital District Beginning really partners with Questar at this point. So we would, need you know, look into a continued partnership. Their partnership would just be with Berlin, you know, not with Questar anymore, so.
But when you partner with Questar, there's always OCC. Will that be figured into your partnership directly with Capital Beginnings? So direct, so.
And again, we don't pay for any of the preschool fees because
This
that's,
is just preschool.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Oh, yes, just for pre, yes, for this. Yep. Yes.
So we don't receive aid necessarily now.
Right.
No,
Now, but we won't receive it and we don't lose it, so it's not to
So
zero.
what?
yes.
My question was for the middle high school. And I was just wondering, very curious about the long-term research and proposal for the CTE tech and WBL coordinator. I think we do a phenomenal job about offering easy courses, lots of, but I am curious about what your vision is or thoughts in response to the technology work-based learning.
So, really, they're two separate things. So really, there's, in my opinion, a need for some research into adding more resources to our middle level CTE experiences. Currently our teachers are doing a great job. We have a science teacher teaching tech in 6th grade. We have a social studies teacher teaching family and consumer sciences. That's allowed, it's acceptable. I look at really the wealth that is our high school technology. And I think we could be doing a better job preparing students for those 21st century skills, as well as some of the soft skills and social skills needed for the workforce. I also have noticed here, so that's separate, the middle school CTE or technology, that can be business, technology, there's a whole list of different subcategories that could be. I see that as being like a part-time position. Another part-time position is a work-based learning coordinator. This is like, if any of you ever participated in a career exploration internship program, you take class, but you also earn hours towards your credit for class. And a work-based learning coordinator is someone who has a certificate in order to run that program. What they do is they partner with businesses. There's someone at Questar who's a really good resource to help connect students with businesses that are really meaningful for them. We do have the VOTEC program, and we do pay for students to go to the VOTEC program in 11th and 12th grade. I think sometimes there is, could potentially be a stigma attached to the types of programs that are offered. Work-based learning doesn't have to be that. You could partner with St. Peter's Health Partners in Troy. You could partner with really any interest that a student might have. They can do one assignment or one internship for 5 weeks and then try something else that might be closely or not closely related. But this really is for any student, in my opinion, would be either, general ed or special education, makes no difference. It would be an elective course for students who are responsible enough to represent us in the community and earn a course credit by working and reflecting on that with a work-based learning coordinator. Why I chose to put it together and have a year of research first, after really doing some bouncing off ideas with Fred and with Dara, we also agree that to bring someone to this district who is really highly qualified and to retain someone, it really would need to be an attractive position. And I think a full-time job is the most attractive position that you can advertise for. And I'll just if I can add a little bit, yeah, because I was part of some preliminary discussions with Jody about this when we were looking at, middle school schedules for next year, and just from the exceptional education perspective, and thinking through the lens of the CDAS credential, which is open to all students. We don't even offer enough CTE courses in-house right now for students to even be able to earn a CDAS, because you have to have a certain number of CTE credits. It's 2 full-year courses. We don't even have that available to our students here. So in terms of identifying, I think, areas of need at our secondary level, I think this is 100% in line with an area where there is a need for our students to really grow some opportunities here.
I have never seen students so motivated by the relevance of a work experience. Chuck and I have really been able to leverage some student behaviors by talking about how it might impact their future employability, how it might impact them if we were their bosses at a job instead of the principal. If we even were to say, like, you're a leader in this program in construction or this program in auto mechanics, what happened here? And when we're able to bridge that, it's really been a very meaningful leverage for the students here. I think that they see a lot of value in being employable.
Well, it just so happens that that's my background. I used to be a job development specialist. But I do see a lot of value in that. I think that we do a really great job as far as the extended courses, but as far as the CTE type job partnering, I do think that could be.
And to add on a little bit of more information to this, in the conversation that Ms. Capozzi and I had with Ms. Sullivan, in terms of, we started with the need, of course. We see a need to have this position. And then we looked at the finances from a conservative approach. And the way it is looking right now is there won't be a budgetary impact on this position in terms of FTE. So we will work with what we have in order to provide this extra opportunity for our students without it having an impact in terms of FTE or budget going forward. So that is what our analysis looks like.
So you're gonna remove a position? How do you do that?
So we're going to look at what we already have and see what we can move to combine it together in order to create this 1.2. So again, we will not be looking at adding on an extra position. We will be looking at creating this position from the resources we already have. So that is where we are heading towards right now. I will, of course, keep the board posted on how that goes. But once again, we start with the needs of the students, and then we work it towards the finances in order to make sure we are respectful of the financial plan that we're all in.
I just have a small little question on the athletics. We're looking at live streaming some of the events. So was there a plan to do a senior night for any of the athletics this year?
Yes, we're looking at a couple of options. One of those options would be one large senior night at the end of the year. All of our seniors and families going outdoors. Create the plan that way. We are just talking to coaches about how we can best do that, or how we can do it on a more case-by-case basis, team by team. Because senior night is very much part of our conversation.
Can I just add another question for you, Chuck? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Rachel. She's been outstanding. Without her, I mean, I know when we talked about this months and months and months ago, how we wanted to increase the communication to parents, families, and the community. Rachel has done that with she's just been wonderful. Who would be doing the live streaming of events? And I mean, are we looking to increase Rachel's time, or are you looking to? I'm just trying to envision how this is all going to play out.
We're going to talk a little bit about, we'll touch on that a little bit going forward in our communications.
Why don't we go with the communication?
I have one more question. Sorry. Unified sports, is that the presentation? That you
It
did?
is, yeah, yeah.
And
I think it was Chuck's like second day where I was like, so unified sports, yeah. So yes, that presentation I gave a couple years ago, yes.
I know that at that point, we had difficulty fielding a team.
Yes,
Are we
yes.
able to merge with another
So
district?
that, I think with the merger with New Lebanon, I think we would have enough students to support a team now. Yes, so that's, I think this is actually really the perfect time to do it. Again, it'll require a little more, that's why it was on, Chuck's kind of, things, considerations, things to look into. It'll require, just a little bit more research, but again, with the merger with New Lebanon, I think we can absolutely support it. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Go to PK, Rachel.
We don't have a fancy slide, but we did send you guys a PDF that you can kind of click through as we're talking. Or, yeah, he's gonna start. But I'm gonna let Brian take the lead
Okay.
here.
So I realize a lot of you don't know me. My name is Brian Porez, and I also do communications. I've been here since December, and I work for Questar. So I'm here on Wednesdays, 1 day a week. Having said that, I'm available to the district 24/7. Anything that comes up, I'm constantly got you on my phone. I'm in constant contact with Rachel, Rose, working on things together, although I'm not quite as visible. And one thing I wanted to talk about was just some of the benefits of having that connection to Questar. Questar serves 22 districts in Columbia, Rensselaer, and Greene counties. So we're always in touch with what's happening at all the districts. We're in constant contact with all the superintendents. We're in contact and abreast of what's happening at the state and federal level. And we're always updating superintendent, the administration on what's happening. So that's a unique benefit that we bring. And one of the other things is that I also do communications in New Lebanon, so I know we have this merger of the sports team, and I'm there 2 days a week. So I think I can facilitate that relationship and help with communications there. So that is a great advantage to the district. But foremost amongst our goals is to position the district as the most authoritative voice for information on the district, that not be coming from anywhere else and not be coming from hearsay or from the internet or from Facebook chatter, but that people come to us to know what's going on, whether it be serious information or things that are more lighthearted. So yeah, that is why I'm here. That is my goal, to express the needs and the goals of the board, of the administration, to the community, to have a two-way conversation with the community and bring their feedback into our school so that we have a constant dialogue going. So.
I'm Rachel Tretzky. I know.
Sorry, Rachel, you're gonna need to step closer to the microphone. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
You can do it, Rachel.
I like to be behind the computer, not. Yeah, so I'm going on just over 2 years now here at contracting with you guys, and it started as a substitute and seeing what's happening in the classroom and saying, gosh, we got to get this out there. These teachers are amazing. The administrators are amazing. I am a little biased. I do have a teacher in the family, and I am also very invested because I have 2 kids here in the district, and they're coming through, and I want it to be everything I can hope it to be. So my perspective in the beginning was to share PR stories. Let's get this out. Let me go to the soccer games, take pictures. Let me tell you how it's, if you can't make it, look at the website, get traffic there. So that also important information that was maybe getting covered at the time by Questar was also getting on the eyeballs of the community. Then COVID happened, and I became the eye of the community, the way that we can communicate out the wellness fair through virtual videos? How can we make the families still feel part of Berlin Central School District without being able to be in the building, and make the kids feel part of it with spirit days and sharing? So my position has morphed a little bit over the past 2 years, but I've had a nice collaboration with Brian from Questar, meeting about what the state has to offer, what the other superintendents are doing, the COVID communicating that is happening, that we are making sure that we are out in front so that there is no chatter, there is no confusion, everything is very transparent. That on the PDF that we have there, that reopening page, I worked very closely with Fred Hutchinson and other administrators in the beginning to set that up so that we had a place for families to go. But I'm stepping ahead, and Brian, you're going to also talk about where you can find us, which is kind of
Right.
new too.
So one of the things since I've gotten here is we've added a new menu on the website with all our social media icons, so it's easier to find. I know that that increasing our social media presence was very important to Superintendent Dara and to ourselves as well, in order to grow our presence there. And putting the menu there was part of that. Just simply making people aware that we have a presence out there. But part of the idea is to get people going out to those different platforms, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and engaging with us there. Each of those has its own audience. Each of those has a different tone. You might have some more lighthearted things on Twitter or Facebook. In YouTube, you can have videos, which gives people a whole nother dimension and window into the district and what's going on with the schools. And then also, both Rachel and myself are always trying to drive traffic back to our district webpage so that they come there and get, again, that most authoritative source of the information on the district, so that they're checking back there and they're saying they might be on Twitter, but then they come back, there's a link back to the district, and they see something else that's not just a lighthearted story, but is something important about regulations that are changing, about something to do with COVID, about other important changes, whether it be the travel advisory or something similar. So that's been a big part of our job, and it will continue now that we have the Twitter is actually new, and it's just a baby. We're growing it. So it's all about growing those audiences. I think Rachel will agree. And that takes time. And so that's what we're investing in with that right now.
Yeah, and I also don't want to lose sight of, I've got my Eastwick Press every Monday, and those are the community members who do not have internet. And this was, before we got computers into the hands of all the students in this district and people got online, just a year ago, a lot of families did not have that in their home. And I think, having that newspaper where they can make a clipping and save it, a grandparent can see that makes a difference when budget votes come around. Those things people remember, that's what's happening. Or you're also going to say, to your grandchild, why aren't you getting involved in that? And maybe somebody else can reach them and see what other opportunities might be out there. I'm a newspaper person, so I do find value in that as well. So that's part of that. But as far as going back to restorative practices that Sam was talking about, and also alignment that Fred was talking about between the buildings, a big thing for me this year was the teacher feature and the classroom spotlight. How can we get these buildings together, get to know each other? It's just, a 6-minute drive that I'm sure a lot of administrators do all the time, but, there is a separation there. And I think from the feedback I've gotten from the teacher features, a lot of staff are saying, oh my gosh, I didn't know that person was into that, or, or they were doing that in their classroom. And I think it's bridging that gap, which I think is very important in going forward when you're talking about aligning the whole district. That's one thing that I really wanted to focus on, and also spotlighting the classrooms more and the students, of course, but.
Right, so one of the things we wanted to get to that was mentioned earlier is live streaming. And this sort of goes along with it, is more broadly, is that, you know, one of the things that we're hoping for, Rachel and I, is just, we know how busy and how engaged all the teachers are, but we hope to have more engagement with them directly so that we can get the things we need, because frankly, we need content, we need feedback from you guys, and we realize that it's partially our responsibility to reach out and get it, but we also need it back so that we can sing your praises, so that we can talk about all the wonderful things that are happening at the school. And we also need involvement. So part of that is with live streaming. That's a new thing that is exciting, that really engages people. I know that with sports, I've heard in other districts where they have now, because of live streaming, they have relatives, you know, at a school, say that their relatives in Florida or Texas or somewhere else are on the stream watching the game. So that's a great thing, and we hope to cultivate that here. But however, one of the things we will need is involvement. And so what I understand of this and what I've learned is that at other districts, particularly with sports, the coaches are involved, or potentially if there's a parent or a staff member who can get involved with that. Rachel and I can't be in all places at all times. So we can help to facilitate to get that set up, to create the Twitter account, to create, we're going to work on creating, most athletic directors have their own Twitter account. So for Chuck, we're going to make a Twitter account where he can live stream the games. However, we will need help. We will need help for the coaches or an assistant coach or somebody who's, you know, an active parent who's responsible and trustworthy who is going to be at these games to live stream that. And the same goes for other events, whether they be arts or science related, to take on that responsibility. The idea is that we can facilitate that and we can help, but there's some needs that need to happen there, whether it be equipment, in terms of a camera. Usually most people are using their phones these days, but we realize that sometimes coaches need to have their phones available. So that's one issue, an area that needs to be addressed. And then it's just simply someone who's responsible to be able to do that. And the idea is that whatever that event be, that a party who is related to that, whether it be sports, arts, or science or something else, take on that role to be at that event and live stream it. And that's how it's done at other districts. And I think it's a good model, and it's something that we can work on here. So.
Then kind of bringing it back to the students again and feeling that sense of community when they're not all in the building together, then, you know, having those outdoor events like the Groundhog Days where we can come together outdoors, making sure we cover those events. Tracy's had these amazing assemblies that I get to sit on where you've got 72 participants sitting at home, half of them in the classroom, they're seeing their friends, they're waving to each other, they're feeling that sense of community. And our job is to give you guys that feeling right back out to the rest of the families and grandparents, whoever's watching. And I think we just really need to continue to cover all of that and keep going. Keep going. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a slog. It's just a constant act of building that community and working on it. And it's not something that happens overnight. We're going to just have to put in a lot of hard work and keep at it and be very consistent and transparent in how we communicate out.
Yes, and transparency at the end of the day, especially with the COVID communications that we've been doing, which is, you know, can derail a whole day of this positive press, you know. The same time, if we have that consistent communication, that same method every single time, that families know what to expect when they're going to get contacted, that is crucial. And I'm very big advocate of that. So I think we've kind of started that. Unfortunately, we've had to do that kind of communication quite a bit, but I think we've been very consistent with it. And that's key.
Now, Rachel, I remember, I'm trying to recall, but when we started this communications, it was a part-time position.
Yes, it is. But I am here, yeah. I'm here in this building. I'm here Tuesdays and Thursdays, and at the elementary Monday and Fridays. And like I said, I have investment in this community. My husband works here, my kids go here.
I was just wondering how you were doing it all.
Well,
I was just wondering how you were doing it all.
well, Brian has been a really great support coming in, so I'm very grateful for that. It's been quite a year, but
She's very humble. She does it all because she works a lot.
Well, I think we both found that, when things are happening, it doesn't really care whether
Yeah.
it's 9 to 5.
right.
When something happens, it happens, and you have to deal with it. So I think
That we're prepared,
Rachel and
yeah.
myself, we're both doing our best to sort of keep our heads above water
Yeah.
and keep everybody informed about what's happening.
It's a great community, and they're very responsive to anything that we can share. So I think it's important to keep doing it and be transparent. So, my goal too.
Just a quick question. Do you guys monitor or do the analytics of the traffic on the website?
Yes.
How much has it increased in the past?
A lot. And I can't give you the numbers. And I also I recently got access to Facebook at the beginning of this year, at this beginning of the school year. And I've been doing a website for about a year now, but we could get you that data. You can't see if it's not the same person coming to the same spot. If you're going to athletics and you're a student who's just going to that schedule to look every time. But our on Facebook, which I'm just really getting used to, and now we're moving on to Twitter, so we'll hang in there. But yes, you can see like this yesterday, just posting about, I happened to get some pictures of the news being here. I mean, it just went through the roof, and people just feel so good about the school getting coverage on CBS 6. And so we can see all that and how much it is shared, and we are getting way more traffic and way more engagement. There's also a way to see how many people are engaging, as well as people are just coming to the district and liking us. And that kind of PR brings me back to, I was talking to Rachel Harrison today, and I said, what kind of enrollment are you kind of seeing coming in? Because I know Lisa Purdy works on enrollment at the school, and I said, I feel like we have this very good energy going, and it's showing with people coming here and being interested in the school. And that's our job, to make you guys all have megaphones. So, because you guys are doing all the work, and we're just getting to take the pictures. So thank you.
Right?
So I just wanted to mention a couple of things to the board. I want to start by thanking the board because you have had communication as a focus for a while in order to engage the community and in order to make sure that our information gets out to the community correctly and we clarify any misunderstandings. And so keeping that in mind, both Mr. Etsky and Mr. Flores have been very instrumental in this. And when the board says, all the work that they do and we acknowledge it, you are absolutely right. It is an incredible amount of work that they're doing. And so our goal is to not only sustain the program, the communications office, but also to see how we can grow it, growing in the future, and to make sure that we streamline our efforts. Right now, you can say our goal is seamless two-way communication. So how do we communicate out and how do we gather information in? Going on what you mentioned, Katie, in terms of do we have data analytics? So how do we know that people are reaching back to us and what are they reaching back to us on? And those are extremely critical, especially when we start looking at our curriculum integration that Mr. Hutchinson spoke about, the new program coming in, the math program and the reading program. So how are parents reacting to that? What is the information we can get from parents? How are we collecting that information? These all become very important questions, whether we look at academics or athletics. So their role in the communication office is going to keep growing. And I am keeping that in mind in terms of growth. And you're working very hard, Mr. Etsky, and we really appreciate it. And that is something that I'm keeping in mind as we look at next year and next year's budget. So I want to make sure I emphasize that. There is something that we have focused in a lot on, and that is a common thread through all of this. It's how to increase student voice, how to increase parent voice, and how to increase teacher voice. And that is extremely important to us. So what both of them are doing is, and I've had maybe 1 million conversations with Rachel on this, in terms of how do we get student voice out? How do we make sure that our students are communicating what they're learning, what they're doing, what their goals are, and how are we meeting those needs? And so therefore that also becomes a central focus of the communications office. How do we get their voice out? Because when we communicate out from the district to the community, it shouldn't just be a singular voice. And that is something we're very careful about. We want it to be a diverse voice that goes out. And that is extremely important to us. And that is what they're working on. It is going to take time for us to grow. We just started the Twitter feed because there is another segment of our community that we're hoping we can get to with the Twitter feed. If you're quickly looking to see what is going on, you can hopefully see it. And we can put some live streaming and videos into it. We did look a lot into live streaming, Mr. Paravella and myself. We're investigating the legal aspects of it, how it complies with 2D, education law 2D, and also FERPA laws, and how to make sure that when we do live streaming, we're doing it in a safe and legal manner, but at the same time opening it up to not just our community, but also relatives and friends from all over who would like to see it. That is something we are very close to finalizing, so I'm hoping that within the next couple of days, we will be able to start live streaming our sporting events and then some other events as well, keeping that in mind. But I can't thank both of you enough. You've done a phenomenal job in getting us here, but the work is still continuing, as you said. So we want to keep going on that. Thank you.
This is date night for the Kerensky's.
At this time, is there any other questions by any of the board members? This will conclude the first phase of the budget presentation. If you have any questions, please send them to myself or the superintendent. And we're off to start. We're going to be reviewing everything. I'd like to thank the staff for the nice presentations. Informative. I know you have a busy schedule. It's crucial that we understand what your needs are so that we can work with you. And, that's really good. And quite a few years ago, we did start the communication piece as an important part of the district, and it paid off this year when we had COVID. So, we didn't have the foresight to predict COVID, but we did have the foresight to predict we want to talk to people. So thank you for coming out tonight, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Need a motion for an executive session?
I'll make it.
Thank you. And we're just going to need Rachel. Executive session.
Leave the meeting now, or?
We have to come back in public session. I think we can.
I wasn't able to send them.
I can call Rachel again.
I'm deleting everyone else.